under 2, no screen time, between 2 and 4. Yeah, it's a little out of touch. Maybe 30 minutes of screen time or something like that, very limited per day.
That seems crazy.
It is crazy, and it's not really based on any research. It's mostly based on this really big fear and sort of conservatism in those. These are doctors. They don't want to be. They don't want to say something that's going to cause a problem. But they're out of touch. So more recently, the National Association of Educators of Young Children, which is a big US group, published their sort of position policy, which was a little bit more balanced, and said it depends. Which was actually a huge breakthrough, because it used to be that the Pediatrics Association of the States was like, no screen time, doesn't matter, TV, interactive games, any creation tools, whatever, any distinction whatsoever. And that was the big problem that I had with it. And now those organizations are stopping. Now, I don't think parents are like, I mean, this is stupid, but I had one conversation with somebody in the States that was literally like, my kid turned 2, so we're going to watch like lots of TV today. It's like, yeah, okay. Like, I don't know if this is a mentality or whatever, that they feel like they need to follow the prescription, their kid will turn out just fine. But I think it's a personal thing. So, I mean, my daughter's 2.5, and we play apps in a very limited sense. We watch only a few things.
Do you get a I mean, it's a kind of a loaded question, but do you get a sense of an accelerated learning from that?
No.
Okay.
I think there is anecdotal, lots of anecdotal things.
Yeah, I mean, I only have one kid, so I have no point of comparison. So that's kind of the odd thing. I have friends who have kids who are the same age, and I mean, my little guy, as I said, just a little over 2. Before he was 2, he could count to 10. He could, like, he knows his ABCs. He can count backwards. I didn't teach him that.
I got to say the same. My daughter's 3. The other one is the learning curve is insane. But she went to like preschool, and they were like, she knows all the shapes, colors. Like she counts to 10 before languages. This is language.
I think anecdotally there's a ton, and you can see on YouTube these videos parents have put up, and I certainly experienced it with Charlotte using some apps where she's following along, but then she's actually anticipating. Because it's hard to sometimes, you're not looking critically and carefully. Sometimes things that look like learning are actually parroting. And preschoolers and toddlers are classic, but that's what they do. You say something, they say it back. An app says something, they'll say it back. But that doesn't necessarily mean they comprehend it. But there are situations where you see, like, okay, yeah, they got this figured out.
But I wonder if, then maybe you have sort of insight into research that informs this, but I wonder if, if you're giving a child a tool that is constantly giving them that feedback to parents, and speeding up the process where they make that transition from parroting to
parroting is part of comprehension.
Yeah, 2 comments. One about the age. I've actually heard for the Nintendo 3DS they have an age limit on it just because of the stereoscopic thing and how your brain develops. I don't know what age that is, but it's something higher than teens.
The 3D thing as a whole, as far as I understand, is a little bit.
It fucks me up and I'm an adult.
Yeah.
What was the second problem?
Yeah.
I just don't remember the 3D problem.
Yeah, so when TVO kids started making apps, they did it for the BlackBerry, and they did lock it so that you couldn't get out of the app. So if you're passing it back to your kid, they're not going to screw up your BlackBerry phone, and you press the end button and then talk, and that's how you get out of it. And if they could, they would have done it for all the touch devices, but they don't allow you that functionality.
Sorry, I was just going to add something to the screen time thing, because Dave and I were talking about this earlier. So I was down at South by Southwest last year and joined in a group that was a Geek Dads discussion. And that topic came up of, do you let your kids watch TV? And how much TV you allow them to watch? And overwhelmingly in that room of, people who I would say are generally very much into interactive and the web and technology, everybody said, a lot more than I expected said, A, we don't have TV in our home, and B, no, our kids don't watch TV. But where that discussion went that I thought was interesting was everybody admitted, yes, we don't put on traditional television, but we have no problems letting them watch a show on Netflix. And sort of where that conversation evolved to was, A, there was a problem with the commercials on television, and that was one of the issues that kept people from letting their kids watch TV. And B, they had more control over how much. Because you put something on Netflix and it would start and end, and then you could stop it and take it away instead of this endless stream of video. So that was a really interesting sort of insight out of that group that
And that uncontrolled interruption of content that you don't really know what it's going to be.
yeah, and even you as a parent, they'll respond when the show stops. It's like, okay, I want more.
Yeah.
So they maybe they watch more, but at least there's a break point in there for them and for you as the parent.
Well, now it's all on YouTube though, so I mean, like YouTube can just go forever as well.
That's true. The recommendations I've learned from this by having, we don't have whatever the DVD plays on the headrests at the back of the car. So I just give the iPad to watch Thomas the Tank Engine, but then you'll get all these recommendations, and I'm hearing these voices, and I'm like, what are you watching? And it's Thomas the Tank Engine, but someone's drawn like faces, and he's dodging.
My kid's gone from like rapping to like crazy death metal. Like,
Yeah.
way too quick. I'm like, I don't know how you got there, but I need that.
You know, I mean, that's the true definition of surfing, and I've done it before, where you've just gone down the rabbit hole, and you've ended up in a whole exploratory path that you're like, I would never have got here if I had not spent, 27 minutes just not just on YouTube, I just mean in general. So I'm like,
YouTube though is like the single greatest thing experience, because I honestly like we go to the Hyde Park Zoo. And we're talking about llamas and whatever, we come back and I'll be able to like pull up videos of llamas and videos of the Andes, and it's just like this like immediacy of it. And like we did a trip to Florida this year, so the week before we're just watching crazy videos of alligators, and I think that's just amazing. You can step outside the house, experience something new and neat, walk inside and just like immediately, I just wanted to reinforce it.
pull back to that slide, I was just showing that before, but that was Wikipedia when it was doing the blackout, right? So I mean that's the thing is the whole thing that was exciting for me about the web back whenever it was like 15 years ago was this whole universal library and everyone had knowledge. So I mean, now it's like well, there you go, it's
I had the story of kind of the video being there. We were driving to our cottage, which is very remote, and there is no like access. And then drive up. He was in the back, had the iPad, was watching some. It was like Mystery Guitar Man. Or and then it stopped streaming. And I didn't understand like why it didn't work.
No streaming and then screaming.
And, yeah, and then like started freaking out. And
Streaming the screen.
and that's when it dawned on me, like these kids, like this kid's, by the time he's old enough to comprehend what's going on, odds are internet's going to be really everywhere. Like he's just, like, he'll be able to stream on the way up to the cottage, and he'll never know a world where
It's
it's there, right?
There's no interruption.
But he had no concept of this was working a second ago, and now it's not, and what is going on, and like, you can see him trying to like play and go back, and come back in, come back out, it wasn't working. It's crazy.
Question, could you talk a little bit about creative apps as opposed to consuming, about the creation that the youth are getting or not getting because moving to mobile?
I can attempt that one. So I was showing you earlier the Girolami app, and so that, I mean, I talk about screen time as all being the same. I think one of the big things is that it's just unfair to lump things in together like that. There's a lot of great apps that allow kids to create content, whether it's music or stories or artwork or whatever. I think that that's just as valid as crayons and all the rest of it. I mean, our thing is that we always get asked, like, can you make a coloring book app or something like this based on our show or our property, whatever. And I'm always kind of rolling my eyes at the fact that crayons are an extremely effective tool for that. And you don't necessarily need just a digital port of crayons. In fact, they're far better. There's all kinds of stuff you can do with crayons you can't do on a screen. But there are opportunities on digital platforms. So yeah, the app I showed you earlier, Doodlecast for Kids, basically gives kids a prompt lets them draw, and then records them talking as they do their drawing, which if you've ever drawn with a 3-year-old, is what they normally do naturally. They'll sit there and scribble away. They're normally recalling a story or telling something that went on. And so we built this app to capture all that, they could watch it back, and then parents could actually save that if they want to save that and store that. And that's like the one app that I always point people to because it's the one that I'm most proud of in a way. And the one that I love doing was my wife's birthday last week, and so Charlotte and I sat down and did a birthday drawing and story along with that and sent it off to her. So it is important to, when people are starting to judge things like screen time, it's not all passive, sitting around and sort of having stuff beamed at you.
Any of the other panelists? Thank you, that was good.
I think the whole thing like with doodling or drawing apps is the fact that kids tend to have this seamless sort of like, I'm digital, now I'm with crayons. Like there isn't any kind of...
So nobody's writing with their crayon on the...
Well, no, I've had to index the iPad a few times. But, there is actually, you don't seem to have like, it's like a continuous stream of thought or creativity. It's just kind of like, okay, the digital end, crayons, paper,
It's not
chalkboard.
mutually exclusive.
Yeah, they're not. They seem to be able to go back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think creators really need to spend a lot of time thinking about what's the value of this particular use of it. Not to try and mimic or sort of say, well, I want to create the same experience using physical crayons on this device. It's like, what can this platform do in addition to either help augment?
Yeah, as you draw a crayon, it's drawing little flowers or pictures.
The next level of that is how can you get them to actually want to go back to using crayons, to come back to this again, start to use it as a symbiotic relationship between the two.
Oh,
Grail
yeah.
of it, kind of thing.
I actually have a slide where it's in line. There's a website. It's called My Robot Nation, and it's an OpenGL website. And so what I had in mind was so like my daughter has this play school magnetic type. So she actually refers to that as her iPad.
Copies, go to the top right.
Yeah. So go view. So if you go quickly down to like.
These are some great slides. Can we go through some of these real quick? Or we'll come back.
Yeah, we'll just come back. But this is My Robot Nation, and my son was watching me build robots, and you can design, build robots, and then you send them for 3D printing, and you get them back as a physical toy.
Yeah.
Like a couple of ways.
That's awesome.
So what happened? So what happens is he was like, I want to build a robot. So I said, okay, fine. So I set up the computer with him, but he also says like, can I have some sandwich? I went and built him the sandwich. By the time I got back, he had actually, I hadn't explained anything to him. He'd actually built, designed, and colored it. It was ready to go. Like in that time that I was in the kitchen. So they don't really need a lot of prompting. So the next slide is, so now he prototypes on paper. So he spends a lot of his time actually prototyping the robots he wants to build. And so then he goes back and then he'll build them. And then because he has a different conception of what they are on paper, so the 3D model, he's like, no, that's not right. And then he goes back to paper again. So like the technology is just the way it is.
It's almost like it perpetuates the path for least resistance that works for the individual. Maybe using a digital device makes more sense in the creative process than physical, but you can't always count on that, and it's always going to be determined by the individual. And again, the path of least resistance.
I love that too, what you said
And
about
that's awesome.
instant gratification, but also I think they have maybe a more heightened sense of the real world than we think they do. They're like, okay, that's great, sure, but it's an app.
Because they have both, and they've always had both.
And they've always had both.
You know what I mean? It's almost like we were so enamored by this new thing that we go to it all the time, but it's like, even at the expense of, it's not actually doing it as efficiently, but I'm gonna keep sticking with it
Which
because.
gives me a lot of faith that the real world will still continue to be exciting. You know what I mean? Like those goals.
Yeah, I mean, I always maintain that, you know, this is why these physical installations in art galleries work. There's not, you know, people don't want a virtual experience of experiencing art. They want the physical aspects of the human interaction, not only with the piece itself, but with each other, and how that all works. So that human real-world interface needs to be.
This lesson's a concern of mine where maybe a few years ago, where especially in the teenage, kind of whether we're getting so into these RPG games, or it was getting so far down rabbit holes that they were neglecting real world kind of duties and things, and it's going down
Hygiene.
well, yeah. Yeah, the whole thing.
Yeah, those things.
It's just going off and
Minor.
yeah. Games that it was, you know, it's kind of worrying about what they This is good knowledge.
Yeah.
Now, the one fun comment I was gonna, this is my 3-year-old and my 5-year-old did this collaborative robot. So, you know,
The finger detail, I see the finger.
yeah, so like, you know, the 3-year-old was drawing, and the other, and my 5-year-old son was saying, no, he
Creative directing.
You know, creative directing.
Yeah.
So the only thing he didn't have at the time.
If it works, I'll take credit.
Yeah, my son, the only thing he was missing was some flannel, and then. But what had happened is they built this, and then they went back into the website, and they couldn't build that, and they were very upset. So that was sort of because
Give him some clay.
Yeah, it works on a very
Plasticine.
set of models.
Can I say something? I think that's a really good point about what limits what, right? Like
Yeah.
you have a child's imagination and they can create whatever they want, right? And they go in, use an iPad or whatever and try and create it and they can, and that's disappointment. I would ask the question, how does that then affect their own psychology and their creativity, and where do they go with that?
Good life. It's a life lesson.
They work with the constraints of the media, right?
Yes,
Yeah, but they tend to then drop the technology. Like,
they do,
yeah,
yeah.
like if it doesn't, like if they can't do whatever they envision in their, you know, in their imagination, if they can't actually do it on the screen, they'll just go to the old, you know, paper and crayon. Because it's more of an open-ended tool than what you've been.
In terms of like the apps where the kid can create something, are they able to recall that? Like, is there a file manager type thing? Like, how would a toddler recall something they created on an app?
What methods to use that was just
So the Doodle Pass app, which is what I was referring to, it actually saves the camera so that parents can do it if they want with it from the Photos app as a standalone video.
Okay.
There is an upload to YouTube option as well that parents can access. But the interesting thing is that toddlers don't give a crap about that. They'll make their little movie and they'll watch it and then they'll go back and make a new one. And that's often and another one is like expectation things. A lot of clients really expect the kids to be into watching all the other creations. And
Right.
yeah, there are some of the situations where that makes sense, but actually it's more that immediate feedback thing that if they hear themselves and see what they're doing, that's really neat, and then they're on the next thing.
Kids are very temporal with their creativity. It's kind of like draw, erase.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and you're sitting there going, oh my god, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't have like a level of saving or progression of how.
Not really. We have a giant roll of butcher paper, you know, that you can get from IKEA for some ridiculous price. And, you know, she doesn't go back to that drawing that she did last Tuesday and, like, decide if she wants to rework it a bit. She just evolves it with a new drawing. So.
Your cat with laser eyes.
Yeah.
Sorry, what about going to the next level and perhaps a bit older, but say a more complex type of creation such as coding? Have you tried coding with kids before, like as a language?
My kid's only 2.
I know.
I've been showing my daughter Scratch, so but that's more of a visual drag and drop type of environment. If I showed it what it actually like drives it, like you can show the code in Scratch, it's just kind of like, eh. It's the actual building and having something, you know, move from point A to point B that actually engages them. It's not the mechanics of how it's done.
She's 9, right?
Yeah, she's 9.
So I mean, I can't answer on behalf of it. Dave Yang was part of this kind of group pool. I know he's been teaching his son how to code because he has an interest in playing games, but I think, you know, they've got applications.
Yeah, I've taught my 5-year-old action script and it worked out well. 5, 6, 7, and we made a tiling game and stuff together. He's still into it. What about your group? Like what was it, Kids Learning Code or something like that? Like was there?
You know, I don't think,
Did that
I think there's
count?
an optimal time, and I don't think any time 9 is, I think 9 and above is probably, anything before that, it's.
What about the new Lego?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
That's true. Now, I will mention something which is a plug for FITC, but Gordon has done these little pieces that interconnect between Lego and every other mechanical piece, and he's just randomly. So that's, I mean, that's more physical, but again, you know, it's made of code.
There's actually something for more like for 3, 5, 6-year-old. It's called Cublets,
Right.
and they're basically building like regular wooden building blocks, except they're robots, and they all have assigned functions. Like the black one is power, the red one is wheels. There's a sensor, camera, and the way you construct them, they actually form these sort of organic creatures. Basically, you can unleash them, but it's more, you know, like build, put it down, falls over. No, that's wrong.